Hello once again, Mr. Pete here, and today I'm going to make a little project. Someone suggested it, and really I need another one of these, maybe even two, to hold all of my indicator tips. Now, as you know from a previous video, this is a STARRETT brand number 25R indicator tip holder. It holds 14 tips. It's 2 inches in diameter, about an 1/8 inch thick wall, just a handy way to hold your indicator tips. Now, some of you probably aren't even aware that indicators, and this is AGD, that's American Gauge Design, so they use all brands made in America, and even one Mitutoyo that I have uses the same thread, and that's a 440/48. That's a unified national fine thread on the end of these, and I do not have a tap. I've got two ordered from Scamazon. They might be here today yet, but it'll probably take me a couple days to make the video anyway, so I'll go ahead and get started, and the tap surely will be here by then. I went down to Ace Hardware to see if they had. I knew they wouldn't, and they didn't. They had 440 course, but certainly not the 448, but it'll work out. So that's what I'm doing today. There'll be a lot of different operations. Even if you never make one of these, and you probably won't, you might find some of the different operations that I'm going to perform here interesting. Now, I've been keeping the extras in STARRETT boxes, so there's at least a couple dozen here, I would suppose. I'll just make one for now unless I have extra energy. And this is totally unrelated, but I need to caution you about any product where the container costs more than the contents. Not that you can do anything about it, but the best example is Pringles. 5 cents for the potatoes, and 50 cents they probably paid for that stupid cardboard can. You know, I don't know that they sell, so I'm off topic. I don't know if they still put STARRETTs in a tin can like this. I think they do with the Altoids. I hate those Altoids. They are incredibly harsh on the tongue. You don't have to worry about small children eating them because it would be too painful for them. Okay, the diameter is 1 3/4. I believe I'm going to make it 2 inches. And as I just said, there's 14 holes. I'm going to make 12 because I can do direct indexing that way with the VEVOR dividing head, which I'll be using here presently. And it's about 1/2 inch wide. That isn't critical at all. And then the ID is 1.358. Again, not critical. However, I do want the wall to be thin. About this thickness. Maybe I'll make it 1/8 inch. The reason is that the 448 tap is so delicate that I'm liable to break it off, so the shorter the thread, the less chance of breaking a tap. Also, I will be drilling a slightly larger tap drill hole so that I get maybe only a 60% thread, much less chance of breaking it. And if you do make one of these, make it out of aluminum or Delbrin or something like that, but don't try it out of steel because you're going to really struggle with taps. Well, I've been planning this project for a week or two already, but yesterday I received an email from Bob Cody. Now, I think Bob's a teacher, I'm not sure, but anyway, he sent me this picture of a indicator tip holder that he made, or his classmate, I forgot which, along with a nice little note there. So that's quite a coincidence. Thank you, Bob, for sending me that, and I'm going to do exactly what you suggested. His wall thickness here looks a little bit thick to me for students, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. Just be careful. Again, there's a picture of it in the STARRETT catalog, and if you're not in the mood for making one of these, go ahead and buy one. They're only $200, but that includes the tips. All right, enough talking. I'm getting to work here. I'm going to make some chips. All right, again, the original, but what material shall I use? Again, this was 1 3/4, and here's a piece, believe it or not, of 1 3/4 aluminum. So I could use this, but you know, there's a lot of drilling and boring and all of that, and I have been saving for over 25 years this piece of aluminum tubing, but it's 2 inches in diameter. It's got a 1-inch hole, but that's what I already cut a piece off and faced it, and this is what I'm going to use because I got a hole already. That'll save quite a bit of time. Now consider this. Let's say that you were STARRETT or a company, or you needed to make 100 of these. 100 of these, or even 1,000 or 10,000. You would want to start with some tubing like this because it would save hundreds of hours of machining, even though they'd be using turret lathes or CNC lathes or something like that. But it makes sense to start with tubing, and I've been saving this for just the right job, but I was still hesitant to use it, even though I'm 82 years old. Thought I gotta save it for an even more important. No, I'm going to actually use it. My first step is to chuck this up in the closing lathe, and I'm going to open up this hole to 1 3/4 diameter. Now, as luck would have it, I have this VEVOR annular cutter, 1 3/4, so I'm going to stick this in the tailstock. Now, more than likely you're not going to have one of these, so you will be using a boring bar, and that's certainly a good alternative. Probably take a little bit longer, but let me show you the setup for this. I did buy some time ago a number 3 Morse taper arbor that would hold the cutters. I think you've seen the cutters before in one of my other videos. Okay, here I go. I'm in back gears. I've got a red line there because I want to go in 3/4 of an inch deep. I may use a little bit of the Alumitap. I am going to use some of it. No may about it. Okay, that took 5 minutes or less. See what it looks like. It's warm, but manageable. Now, of course, an annular cutter leaves a plug in there. And I don't really care about that. I'm just going to leave that in there for now. I could probably try to break it out, but no need. Also, whatever the wall thickness is there, 1/4 inch or so, that's what I'm going to deal with. But this inner core, I'm going to call it, that won't interfere at all with the operations of drilling and tapping, I don't believe. So, now one other thing. Don't forget the chip jar. I think you may remember that VEVOR sent me a set of these annular cutters some time ago. The arbors were not included. I purchased those separately. All right, on to the next step. Over on the Bridgeport mill, and this is the VEVOR dividing head. If you're interested in one of these, I'll put the link in the description, but I'll take the work. And remember, this is extra long. Don't start with a real small piece. You're going to be in trouble. So I'll tighten this down. Ready to go? Now, I'm going to use direct indexing, and that's why the chuck spins freely. I have removed the indexing plate and the crank and the sector and all of that because it's in the way of making the adjustment here. So what we have inside of a dividing head is a worm and a worm wheel. So I'll loosen it up again here, and I'm going to engage it now. That's loose. So I'm going to engage the worm. So now I would need the crank on there, and I would do the dividing with one of those plates. But it didn't come out even for me with 14 spaces. So I decided to make it 12 and use the direct indicating method, which I have shown in other videos. Let me elaborate. Well, the first thing I need to do is to put the edge finder in here and move in, what did I say, 1/4 of an inch this way, and find the center this way. So using my Royal Quick Change tooling, this is an edge finder, the 500,000th version. There we go, and I'm ready to find the edge. I know you can't see the digital readout, but that's what I'm looking at. So the radius of this is 250, and I want to move in 250, so that's a total of 500 thousandths. Now you can just use layout lines for this too. Isn't that critical? There I'm at 500, and I'll lock the table in the x-axis. And now, looking at the y-axis, I'm going to zero it out, and I need to move in 1.231. That includes the radius of the edge finder. 1231. Right there, and I will lock the table. I have a complete selection of the Royal Quick Change tooling. I have shown that in a video, but that was a long time ago. Maybe some of you don't care two hoots, I don't know. But anyway, it's so easy to change the tools. And I got a center drill in that one. And that quickly I'm ready to go. Let me explain what I'm doing with direct indexing. Again, we got freewheeling here, and I'm looking at this plate, and it's in degrees, but it goes every graduation. It goes from 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way around to 35, and then 36 is the starting point again. And can you see the little pin? So I will bring this to 0, put the pin in. And for what I'm doing, I'm not even going to need to lock it. So after I drill one hole, I back the pin off and I move 3 spaces, and I have marked them all with magic marker. I don't know if you can see that, but it just helps to eliminate error. Just don't trust, if you're an old guy like me, don't trust yourself. Mark everything. Wear your glasses too. Well, ultimately, I want to use a number 31 drill. This is the tap drill size, a little bit larger than what I need, and I talked about that a minute ago. But what I'm going to do is center drill all the way around, 12 holes, and then do it again with the drill. Now, yes, I could drill with a center drill and then put this in and drill it again without indexing. I think it's faster to do it the way I'm going to do, but you can choose your own weapon on that. Here's hole number 1. And I want to go deep enough so that I got just a little bit of a countersink, and that will also help. It'll take the burr off from the threading, and it will help the tap to get started straight. I won't show all of the holes, it will take too long, but I'm going to index it for the next hole right there. Now there's other ways of doing this. So Bob Cody, remember I just showed you his project, he had his class using a spin index. These are quite reasonably priced. I'm not going to use it, but I'm just giving you a heads up that a lot of you have these. I know you do, and you might have to have an arbor to hold your work because this takes 5C collets. I won't talk any more about that. Okay, I've drilled 10 holes, 2 more to go. Done. Got 12 holes equally spaced, and now 10 holes all the way through, and I'm using just a dab of WD-40. Works pretty good on aluminum. And 2 more. And I'm back to home. Now I had considered tapping under power on the machine, but too much of a chance of breaking the tap. So I'll do that at the bench, and you can see the holes. Worked quite nicely. Well, the mailman just came. I went out there and there was an Amazon package, but it wasn't for me, it was for my wife. So I will not have the taps today. And I'm going to be traveling to Arkansas. But what I'll do for now is I'll go ahead and cut it off with a cutoff tool here, exactly a ½ inch, and then it's basically ready to tap. I was going to tap it the way it is in the bench vise, but I guess I can do it just as well after it's already been reduced. But before I cut it off camera, I think I'll just polish this up just a little bit, because there's no good way to hold it after it's been cut off and it's real narrow. So that's really is the order of operations. Quite a bit of deburring necessary on the inside, but I'll wait until after it's been tapped. But I do have to get rid of this and put a little bit of a chamfer on there, although I tried to file one on, you might have seen that. But it's coming along nicely. All I need is that 448 tap. Also, do you find it interesting that there's that slug left from the annular cutter? And the annular cutter leaves a pretty decent finish inside. Not great, but it does not really need polishing. Today is October 2025 when I'm filming this, but I'm in the process of making another video here. It's not done yet. This is my crazy setup where I'm going to check the torque, that is the difference between 5/16 drills, just one regular high-speed jobbers and another one that is a split point, to see if there's any difference in the amount of effort or torque involved in feeding it. crazy as it seems, that's what I'm going to try, so watch for that video in the future. Well, today is November 10th. It's been, what, 12 days or so since I've worked on this little project. You can see I'm in different clothes anyway, I think. But I have traveled to Arkansas. There'll be some great content coming out of there, I believe. 4 or 5 videos. One that's going to be particularly good where I visit a machine shop. Don't miss that. But the reason that everything is such a clutter here is I've been waiting for these little 448 taps for to tap this project. I almost feel like I'm starting over, but I know it's continuous for you people. But anyway, I ordered the 448 taps from Amazon. Well, they didn't come before I left on my road trip, so I started other projects, as you can see here. But anyway, let me get back. Get sidetracked here. So I ordered those taps from Amazon, and I kept tracking them even when I was on the road. And they left Channahon, Illinois. That's 50 miles from here, and it went to St. Louis, and then it went to it actually came here to town, and then it left again, and I saw it was in St. Louis. Then it went to California, and guess what? It's still not here. And that was all through the United States Post Office, so it might still come, but I will return it if it does. I mean, it's only $11 or something like that. But in the meantime, yesterday I ordered. They give you that option of reordering it, and it came, in less than 24 hours. Now that was delivered by a man in an old Chevy station wagon, even though it's Amazon, and he did a heck of a lot better than the multi-billion-dollar incompetent postal service. So, sorry for the rant. I'm going to cut this open now and see if they're the correct taps from Amazon. Cracks me up. Okay, here are the 448 taps. It's like buying shoelaces. You can't buy just one pair. You got to buy 2 pairs. Same thing here. Anyway, the silly thing is that in my selection of taps, I have thousands of taps. Yeah, thousands. But I have literally dozens of 440 taps. I'm not even going to pull all of them out. There's so doggone many of them there. But no 448s, never needed one in my entire life. And I think just for the pure joy of it, I'll throw these away when I'm done with the job. And another thing, while I'm ranting here, is, there were 2 videos on this vise, one on the handles. Nobody watched it. If I had known how little interest, I would have thrown this thing into the Vermilion River. What an absolute waste of time. I'm brokenhearted, and I'll tell you why. And maybe this you can understand. It's not about the money, but let's say that you invited 50 people to your 80th birthday party, and you got catered food, you got a tent set up, blah, on and on and on, and 7 people show up, and they're your brothers and sisters. Nobody else showed. That's kind of what it's like when I put a lot of effort into a video and then nobody. But I'm delusional. I'm there in bed, sleepless, thinking people will love this vise. By the way, someone in the comments said that these never really were a success in the market, and only 200 of them were ever actually made. Now, whether or not that's totally true, I do not know. And now, after 12 days, yeah, I'm going to finally start tapping these holes. I think this is the first time I've ever used the baby bullet vise in a video anyway, and I had a laugh when I was at Arnfest. I was tailgating there next to another guy. I've known him for years, on and off, and he sells a lot of stuff. And I said, "Well, how much are these worth?" I didn't even have it there, but I posed that. He said, "We're $400, $500, $600 each." And I said, "Well, do you have any?" He said, "Yeah, I got 21 of them." So that's cracked me up also. Anyway, I'm ready to tap. There's the tap. Just kidding. Never use a tap wrench any bigger. It must be proportional to what you're doing. So I'll be using the little tap wrenches like this, or I might use a little T-handle tap wrench. Remember, I made a video on this many years ago, including nickel plating it. So if you're interested in that, look it up. I'm going to use WD-40 for tapping fluid here, but I want to show you something else that I did here. I know I'm getting off topic, I know it, but years ago, some of these tapping fluids, and there was one that was even much worse than what I'm going to show you here, but it says not recommended for aluminum. So a couple weeks ago, when I was doing that other video, I did tap a piece of aluminum using this. Just to show you what happens, you get this horrible black stuff going. With one product, this is 50 years ago, it actually would smoke a little bit and stick the tap into the aluminum. It was a violent chemical reaction. So I don't think you're going to run into that problem, because they took the good stuff out of almost all of these tapping fluids. Tetrachloride or something like that. I think that's what they use for dry cleaning even, but anyway, I'm going to use WD-40. And don't worry, I'm not going to tap all 12 of these on camera. Just maybe I won't even finish this one, but the idea is a very small tap wrench that I'm just using 2 fingers, so you have a feel for it. Now as you get older, and after you've broken enough taps, you will have that feeling. You know when it's going to break before the horrible crack and the swearing starts. In fact, I haven't broken a tap probably in 25 years, albeit most taps that I use are much, much larger than this. So I'll be back after all 12 of these holes are tapped. And remember, each one is countersunk just a little bit. Remember when I did that? And I used the tap drill size just a little over. So I'm probably getting about a 60% thread depth. Plenty good and strong enough. Let's remember what this is. Well, it's 15 minutes later, and I am as frustrated as an old man can be. So I tapped one hole. I thought, well, I'll just test fit it here with one of the little parts, and it'll start, but it won't go in. So I spent, I don't know how many minutes, well, 15 minutes. And, I'm fiddling around with this, and I'm seeing if it fits in this, just going through all kinds of effort. Then I got the other tap out. These were the 2 taps that were in the package. This is the one that I just used. And in the end, these 2 taps aren't the same. This is a 440. I put a nut on it. This is the correct one. And again, 50-50 chance, and of course, I grabbed the wrong one. But the package here, as you can clearly see, is marked 448. But there was one of each. So now I better really be careful I don't tap it, because I don't have 2. I have 1. So off camera, I think I can retap this. This isn't a piece of equipment going to the moon or anything like that, even though we never went to the moon. And all right, back to tapping instead of whining. But it's just like, can't anything go right today? All right, I retapped it, and now it is the correct thread. So it's a double thread in here, it won't matter. So I'll tap the other 11 without pestering you, but I couldn't even begin to read the reading. You need a $15,000 Bosch & Lomb electron microscope to read that. So that's why I had to fiddle around with nuts and gauges and all of that. But finally, this is the right tap, not this one. I already had 40 of those. All right, I got one more to tap, and I'm going to open that up a little bit larger, because the actual charts tell you for a 448 to drill 42. Well, I drilled 41, and then I decided, I'm going to go with a 40. So as I went around here, I did open up again, that isn't much, to a 40. But consider that on your small projects so that you do not break a tap off. And I'm on hole 12 and it's not broken yet. I really got something interesting to show you here in a minute, so do not hang up. Mission completed, the job is done, I put it on the lathe and I polish the inside so all the burrs are gone. And I've been digging through the Sucrets boxes for all of the tips that would fit in here, and much to my dismay, there are actually only 5 tips that have male threads. Now, I do not understand this. Explain it to me if you can, but the rest of the contact tips for the indicators are female threads. I don't think I have any actual indicators that would take female threads. So really, I need to make another one of these that would have 448 studs, if you know what I mean. In other words, a male thread sticking out such that I could fasten these onto it. Will that get done? No way in the world. But here's what I'm going to show you now. Get ready for this. Hang on to your hat. As I was digging through these moments ago, look what I found. A 448 tap. Now granted, it's either been broken or ground off or whatever, and I may have had a heck of a time getting it started, but I was the owner, of the possessor of a 448 tap all the time. Man, the irony here is just killing me. The other thing, I wonder if I should open the Amazon box bag, the other one, if it ever does come, and retrieve my rightfully owned 448 tap. So that was a surprise that they sent me a pair of mismatched taps. Here's just a little bit of extra credit for inquiring minds, but you might find it interesting. For those of you that do not have a dividing head and would want to make one of these, here's an alternate way. And by the way, a 12-sided polygon is called a dotagon or something. I don't know what it is, doesn't matter, but there is a name for it. So here's your alternate way of doing it. And I printed this out off of the internet, but you could take your rough blank and lay it on there and mark with a marker or whatever 12 evenly spaced lines to drill. And here's another alternate way that might even make more sense to you geometry drafting guys. I laid out a circle on graph paper. It doesn't have to be graph paper. But by the way, this type of adjustable triangle allows any angle at all, because if you wanted to make 14 holes like STARRETT instead of the 12, you probably wouldn't, I don't know what the angle is, but it would be a weird angle. But laying out a circle with a 30-60 triangle, you can come up with I'm doing this a little bit sloppy, but that's how you would lay it out with a 30-60 triangle and just work your way around. And everybody, well, I would think everybody would have drafting triangles. Maybe not, it's a thing of the past. Well, I'd still like to find some 448 screws or threaded rod or a die where I could make some little studs so I could hold some of these. So if you're with me, stand by and come along with me while I search the shop for these small screws. You might find it interesting. 20 years ago, I went to a real neat auction. The man was an inventor, and I bought all of the small screws, and as you can see, we get down here and there are some 440s, a bunch of them, but no 448s. Well, one more possibility. And right next to it is another little organizer, and there are tons of 440s. But no 448s, of course, cap screws and so on. But these are the screws that I often used when I was, well, back in my prime when I was making models. Now let's look for a 448 die. That's where I keep some of my dies, and there's a lot of real small ones here, and I've already gone through these tiny little button dies. They go down to number 3s, some of them, but no dice. But just as I was about to slam the drawer shut in despair and disgust, I thought, well, what are these two? Well, that's a number 3, but guess what's in here? You guessed it, a 448 Unified National Fine. You're not going to be able to read it, but what I'm going to do now, off camera, don't worry, the video is over. I am going to thread some rod. I'll probably have to turn it down and make some little studs so that I can hold more of the tips in that fiasco behind me. Again, thanks for watching. Well, it was a long video and it took a long time to make it, 10 or 12 days, mainly because I was traveling and waiting for the taps, of course. So, there it is, but I don't have enough taps to even fill it, or points, I mean. Got taps on my mind, and I could have made one. I should have made one with 5 holes, because that's all the tips I have. Maybe I can go to Ace Hardware and get 448 screws, so I got some studs. Never mind. Anyway, leave a comment, and don't forget to chip me. And remember, I got 1,500 other videos available for your perusal. Mr. Pete saying, so long for now.